My name is Dean Yates. I got a message for journalists around the world, especially in my home country, Australia. I was bureau chief of Reuters when an Apache gunship killed a dozen men in Baghdad on July 12, 2007. Two of those men worked for Reuters, photographer Namir Noor Eldin and driver Sayed Chum. The circumstances of how Namir and Sayed were killed would have remained a US military secret if it wasn't for Chelsea Manning and Julian Assange. Chelsea, then a US military intelligence analyst, found a recording from the Apache gunship that showed the attack unfold. She sent it to WikiLeaks. Julian released it to the world. He called the tape collateral murder. The US government's 18-count indictment against Julian boils down to this: the public's right to know how the US military waged war in a foreign land. Watch Collateral Murder and make up your own mind about Julian's case. It's bloody difficult to watch, but minimise the screen, mute the volume, or read the transcript. It's easy to find. Collateral Murder shows what the war in Iraq really looked like. No spin, no smooth talking, deflecting US military spokespeople. The war came from the air, and it came with commentary. No footage like this from any war in history is in the public domain. Footage instantly recognised by sight and sound. Clouds of dust as cannon shells crash into men. A wounded man, Sayed Chum, a Reuters man, one of my staff, trying to crawl for 3 minutes. A minivan pulverised from the air. Sickening banter between pilots. The only comparable footage, the execution of a Viet Cong prisoner on the streets of Saigon by South Vietnam's National Police Chief on February 1, 1968, is held under licence by NBC and can be obtained only with special permission. Everyone remembers the Pulitzer Prize-winning photo by Eddie Adams, but not the footage because it's not a mouse click away. Adams' photo, taken at the start of the Tet Offensive, changed how many Americans saw the war in Vietnam. It's part of the historical record. I doubt few people would argue his photo should never have been published, or that the Associated Press should have censored it in some way. The world needed to see the moment of Nguyen Van Lam's death, the casual way he was executed. Can the same be said for the tape Julian published? Absolutely. It was in the public interest because Americans had a fundamental right to know how their government was conducting war in Iraq, how their taxpayer money was being spent. Americans had a right to understand the cost being imposed on the people in Iraq. It was also in the broader global public interest because up to that moment, so much of the war in Iraq was hidden from view. Something else of significance is that the tape shows just 38 minutes of the Iraq war. But from the pilot chatter and from the casual way permission was given to open fire, we can reasonably assume that this was the everyday in Iraq for the US military. The attack on the van was not out of the ordinary. Firing Hellfire missiles into a building from which no shooting had originated 25 minutes after Sayed was killed was not unusual. If Julian had not published this tape, made it available to the world, we would not know this. This tape is now part of the historical record, as it should. Judging by the tens of millions of people around the world who've watched the footage, it will also go down in history as one of the greatest scoops in journalism. What is happening to Julian is a litmus test on freedom of expression, on holding those in power to account. Remember, this case is about Julian's activity in 2010 and 11. Don't get tangled up in recent US political events. Charging Julian over the publication of classified documents on the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan when the war in Iraq was based on lies to begin with is breathtaking hypocrisy. But don't just accept my view, think about it yourself. But don't take long. Julian's extradition hearing resumes in London in less than 2 weeks on September 7. You've got a voice. Speak up.